how the Lost Ancient High Technology industry works. The combination of elements that go into the Lost Ancient High Technology industry narrative are exactly the same that you'll see in Ancient Aliens as well. So maybe they might not all agree on the origins, but they do share a series of a narrative, a story in regards to essentially it's impossible with primitive tech, therefore must be lost ancient civilization, Atlantis, aliens, insert that, but they all come from a common thread. And some of the main elements are, to begin with, fake facts presented as fact that are just like utterly false, and not only false but like so easy to check it's really questionable whether that they did not know these things before they state them. Extreme cherry picking, so they'll take a quote, which the quote itself is not untrue, but the quote is not relevant to the actual issue being suggested. And various forms. The third element is to mix it in with some sort of salvation or spiritualism. So we're doing this to save the earth from the next cataclysm. We're going to lift your spirit. Once you understand and accept impossible lost ancient technology, this will then lead to some sort of spiritualism, salvation, some sort of vision which will give you gnosis and enlightenment. So let's just go through some of these basic ones, and I'll share this one because it was posted in a comment. We have Michael Sarion, a god in ruins, and again, they're all very kumbaya, but his particular statement here is not to him alone. This is actually runs across the whole gamut with lost high technology, ancient aliens, and one statement really sums up this argument. The Baalbek stone and others found in the Great Pyramid cannot be lifted by any modern crane. Now, as we're going to see in a moment, they'll also say the Serapeum boxes cannot be made. The Ramesses giant statues cannot be made. Well, we'll look at that. But first, the Baalbek stone and others found in the Great Pyramid cannot be lifted by any crane. Literally, Google big crane, large crane. Find the weight of a stone. Google a crane that has that weight. Well, so the pyramids. The Great Pyramid and others, the Great Pyramid has blocks between 1 to 6 ton. That's, I don't know the exact percentage, but 99.9% of a pyramid is made up by these blocks. Now, I'll do another follow-up video. The interior of the pyramids, including the Great Pyramid, is made up of rubble. It's only the few outside layers that are the casing stones that are finely set, and you go back one layer, and by the time you go back 3 levels, it is rubble inside of the pyramid. There are some, and by some I mean very few, heavier blocks in the Grand Gallery and the King's Chamber that weigh up to 80 ton. The heaviest stone in the Great Pyramid weighs 80 tons that we know of. There might be another one, but that we know of for the moment. Well, Lifting Safety Company, they sell block and tackle, manual block and tackle, with up to, say, 50,000 off the shelf, so 50 ton off the shelf, and specials up to 100 ton can be bought. And there are also other companies that do this, so it's off the shelf technology. This device, 100 ton manual chain hoist, that means it's powered by a person. There's no electric motor combustion engine involved in there. This skinny chain you see off to the side, one person pulls on that. Strong person, usually you'd have 2 people working the chain, but it's possible for one person to lift 100 ton, and all you see is a modern version of ancient technology. This is the kind of stuff that's essential for shipping, was exquisitely described in ancient texts such as Vitruvius. Winches and pulleys do all the work here. 100 ton blocks. So the heaviest stone in the pyramids can be lifted by one man. We've not even bringing in a crane yet. It's a fake fact. And again, the Baalbek stones are always brought up. So you have the 3 trilithons, 800 tons. So don't let anyone tell you they're 1,000 or more. They're not even 800 tons, between 700 and 800 tons. There are also other large blocks unfinished there in the quarry. 1,200, 1,600 ton is the heaviest. Can any modern crane? Well, let's get a 100 ton chain hoist now. I might add now the Lebanese cedar frames. I think these might be Lebanese cedar in the background. A small frame, and by small I mean on each corner, roughly 1 square meter is enough to support this stone. So you break that down into a few logs. Any of these blocks with a very small frame, it would be, in comparison, would look like matchsticks wrapped around it, can support that weight. 8 people could lift that stone. No crane. 8 people on their own, or 12 or 16 people. So that modern cranes cannot lift these or the Serapeum or this. It is an utter nonsense. It really is. Now there's other lifting gear, modern lifting gear, hydraulics and other, like these weights that you're talking about that were moved in the past are utterly insignificant to modern lifting technology. Not even close to impossible, like off-the-shelf stuff, let alone specials. Okay, so this crane is rated for 1,200 ton. It is designed to drive on highways. That's why all the wheels are there. It's there to spread the weight across the road. You might have seen that levitated mass. It's only 350 ton, and they had built this gigantic crane frame to move it. It was not to support the weight. It was to distribute that weight over the road, because if you're driving through towns and cities, you're passing over water pipes, electric pipes, sewer pipes, the asphalt itself. You're looking at minimum, just for the road and the fixtures connect to the road, $5 million a kilometre, not including the pipes underneath. So the levitated mass, if you've seen that, that's just such a terrible example. It really is. But this was designed to drive on the roads. This is an extendable boom crane. It's like trying to lift a weight like a dumbbell and then lift it up and away from your body. This is a terrible design for lifting heavy stuff. This is a good versatile design where you can pick it up, move it over here, but in terms of crane design, you're doing heavy lifting. This is the worst type of crane, second worst. The construction cranes would be even worse. But 1,200 ton, it's designed to drive on highways. That's the limitation of the truck. It's not it's not limited to 12 ton. They could easily jazz that up and get it a higher weight. It's all the combinations of driving on the roads, driving into construction sites, the weight of a crane itself. And they'll drive onto dirt roads as well. So when you're off the highway, you drive on a dirt road, something like this is not going to disappear into the earth beneath it. So that crane could lift the stone of the pregnant woman. Another important point, it is not the modern motor that drives these machines and enables them to do the lifting. I can probably, I'd be struggling probably on this, but a big strong man would be able to lift 100 tons on his own with this manual chain hoist. I'd have someone helping me probably. So 12 of these equals one of those. Now, where does that power come from? It comes from the winches and the pulleys. They do all the real work, just like in ancient lifting machines. It's not this modern power plants that have revolutionized heavy lifting. The power plant in here, if you were just to connect a rope to the motor and let it run without the pulleys and winches, wouldn't come close to lifting those weights that it's supported to lift. Think of the winch that you'll see on front of a Jeep. Has a tiny little motor on there. That, if you were to take that motor apart and just connect it to a reel, you're not lifting that weight. It's the gearbox connected to this tiny little electrical motor that gives those winches on the front of Jeeps, etc., all their power. It's not the motor, it's the system of gears and pulleys that do all this. So if this was disconnected, this crane could lift it, and this is a bad choice for that type of work. This is versatile, economic. You drive it in, later that day you drive it out. It could lift any of those, the trilithons. It could lift the stone of a pregnant woman, and in reality it could also lift the 1,600 ton block. The 1,200 ton is a safe working load. Cranes, lifting equipment are always have extra weight combined to them. Now, legally you wouldn't do it, but if you would have the short arm, the arm extended right down to the base, the equipment there would probably be able to, almost certainly be able to lift it. But this is the largest at the moment mobile extendable boom crane. That's to drive on highways and roads. Now, so when you see this type of picture, which is actually in the Baalbek Museum, this is pure bunk. one crane could do this, or 12 people with a chain hoist could do that. There we have 1,000 tons. So these cranes, because they have that long extendable arm, they're liable to tip over. So that's why that crane's so bad. Again, it's like take a dumbbell. If you do an arm curl, you can lift that weight easily enough. Try and lift that weight outwards. Keep your arm straight and lift it up. It's much, much harder, if not impossible, to bring your arm up. And also, you want to tip over. Well, that's why these cranes are a bad choice for that type of work. Versatile, but not the best choice. If you were to take all that lifting gear, reassemble it into a different format, you would have something like this. And this is a hoist crane. It lifts directly up. So there's a off-the-shelf 1,000-ton hoist crane for the billionaires to lift his boat up and then drive it around the docks. Just like with levitated mass, this is lifting 3 times the weight of levitated mass, and it's only got a few wheels, dollies on it. Again, that whole levitated mass, ancient aliens, lost high technology using levitated mass as an example is cringe. This is Tyson. It is a 20,000-ton hoist crane. It just reconfigured, and you add more pieces and add it up. So modern crane technology. Now, why did I bring up 20,000 ton? Well, all of the unfinished blocks, there's another one. So we have 2 1,600 tons, one 1,200 ton. Then there are these 600 ton, and lots of these around there. And the entire wall, the trilithons, the beveled stones supporting them, and the entire wall could be lifted by Tyson all at once. That's lifting technology, modern lifting technology, which is just based on ancient lifting technology. We just have better materials now. And Tyson is not the strongest crane. There are so many lifts bigger than this. That's just like an everyday working type of crane, rather than one that's been designed for special sort of one-off use. Because once you build your monument, it's like, well, unless you go and build another one directly, then you don't have an industry to support these things keep going on. So basically the entire Baalbek, I should have included in this picture the temples on top of Baalbek, because this crane could lift the entire friggin' Baalbek complex. Not just one stone, all of them. These are the kind of fake facts. Now, could they not Google big cranes? Will they revise in later editions? No, because it's important to this narrative, this story, to firstly introduce fake facts, and you start cherry picking semi-related ideas and try and form a narrative around it. Then you add some sort of Kumbaya spiritualism. We've all been, we're all non-spiritual beings. You're broken, I'll fix you. All you need to do is accept that we know nothing, because a modern crane cannot lift Baalbek, so therefore spiritualism. Well, these are con men. They're grifters, fake gurus, false prophets, whatever you want to call it. They're just like so far way off, and they all rely on this. And you'll see it throughout the Lost Ancient High Technology and the associated New Age movement. They're all ancient aliens. They're all operating on the same false facts, and then leading you into a pseudo spiritualism based on fake facts and cherry picking. We'll go more into that. So here's the granddaddy of fake facts, snake oil merchant Brian Foster, and what does he have to say? Just a friendly reminder, this is still being sold in 2020. That's, literally still selling this. So at 15 minutes 20, this is just a poo storm of ridiculous claims. But like the Romans couldn't work granite, Romans couldn't lift the column drums, Romans couldn't do this. Well, Romans didn't have lathes. Again, it's even described in Pliny, and you see single piece columns. We'll leave that for another one. But his quote: "The technology to shape granite to this fineness and high polish was only developed once we had diamond tool technology. That didn't occur until the late 19th century. So therefore, this column of shaped polished granite must be ancient lost high technology." Well, okay, now, so first question, so there was no granite polished between the Lost Ancient High Technology and diamond technology? Is just, like thousands and thousands of places with polished granite floors, walls, sculpture, and statue. So on first, like, this is incredibly devious or stupid of an assertion to make. So therefore, diamond technology for people of, I just grabbed a shot, this was Sicily, granite cobblestones that have been polished down over time. So therefore, the people of Sicily had diamond shoes. And, this has been like that since the Lost Ancient High Technology, when the Sicilian people, or people living in Sicily at the time, had diamond shoes, because how else could you, polish down granite? Did you know that no semi-precious or precious stones such as topaz, garnet, beryl, or sapphire were being polished since Lost Ancient High Technology and the invention of diamond technology? They are harder than granite, so without diamond technology, it's impossible to polish them. If you can't polish granite, then you can't polish garnet, topaz, beryl, sapphire. So every stone that's historic, before diamond technology, is only inherited. There was no stone industry, no jewelry being made since Lost Ancient High Technology up until the late 19th century. That's what he's asking you to believe. That's his facts. And again, 2020, he's still repeating this. And the problem with Lost Ancient High Technologists such as this, their arguments are built on it's impossible, therefore, and they cannot pull back from this, because if it's one backward step, then the whole thing falls apart. And that's how it works with fake facts combined with a fake fact combined with a fake fact to build up a fake story. And any one of those pieces, it's a house of cards. One comes out, the whole fake card house collapses, and that's why they can't address this. So crown jewels were in the 1600s. There's diamonds there, but there are also other precious stones, garnet, sapphire. So these are all relics of Lost Ancient High Technology, because there was no gem industry at that time anywhere in the world, because they didn't have Lost Ancient High Diamond technology. That's how it works. Pliny the Elder, he describes the single piece lathe that they were using at that time, but he describes the stone of emery, stone of Naxos, for polishing marble statues. And he also talks about working granite in the book as well, and where to source it from, but also for cutting and polishing, giving a polish to precious stones. So this guy who says, Romans can't do this, Romans can't do that, either he's lied about knowing what the Romans can do and it's just making stuff up to suit his narrative, so he's lying, or he's lying that he does know what was being done and is lying to preserve a narrative. Either way, you got to protect the story. And so, again, do you seriously believe there is no polished granite before diamond technology? There was no, more difficult to polish precious stones? That's what Lost Ancient High Technology would have you believe. Also, again, this is just a fact, even we know it now, but the aid of iron, so he's talking about cutting stones, the aid of iron, it is in reality affected by the sand, the saw acting only by pressing upon the sand with a very fine cleft in the stone as it moves to it. So an iron blade rubbed back and forth, the iron doesn't cut the stone, it's the sand that does. Copper blade, rub it back and forth, it cuts too. You can do it with plastic, you can cut it with wood. Iron's not going to wear down as quickly, but it's not much better than copper. And again, plastic or wood you can do, or a piece of bone. So this idea that you can't cut stones, well, how were they cutting them prior to modern machine? Like people were doing this. That's how they worked. If you add up all of the stone that's being cut, well, it's not like a neat little pile that will fit in a storage container. There's a hell of a lot of stone that's been cut and polished in the 16th, 17th, 18th, 13th to just go back in time. That's important because, again, still, Brian, it's impossible to drill in granite without diamond technology. Again, others still say this. This is these false facts that they need, and so this piece needs diamond technology. You know what I see here? I see a tiny little Serapeum box. You drill down, you knock those pieces out with a stone, you rub it out, and what have you got? A hollowed out box, granite box. We'll come to that later. I've drilled all sorts of granite using different sandstone, quartz, emery. It's easy. Anyone can do it. They know it can be done, but they're still selling this story that you can't do it because you're not a spiritual enough, enlightened being. You need to accept this to save the world. Kumbaya, send me money, join me on an overpriced tour. Pointers are dogs, do a good job. Stone pointers just say impossible over and over again. It can't be done, therefore must be lost ancient high technology. Presented with the facts that it can be done, well, all of a sudden they become, cross-examination experts. All of a sudden it turns into, like I'm evidence-based. But when it comes to lost ancient high technology, well, there is no evidence, but it can't be done. Therefore, anyway, this is how they work. It's extreme cherry picking. So they are either utterly incompetent and lying about the research that they haven't done and saying they have, or it's just a scam. And it, as a sort of to paraphrase, it takes a genius to act so stupid, so well, so often. So I don't, I want to believe that they are just incompetent, but it's very hard not to see the scam that's going on here, and it is a scam indeed. Whether they are aware to it or not, they're scamming people on a false bit of rubbish. So, lost ancient high technology, how the industry works, fake facts, cherry picking, and then attach some sort of salvation, spiritual message to the end. But let's look at cherry picking, and something of a master at this is Christopher Dunn. Extreme cherry. This is the Christopher Dunn method examined. Now we'll also bring up this quote by Christopher Dunn. Engaging specialists in interpreting ancient artifacts in Egypt is absolutely necessary in establishing a credible hypothesis. Without their input, there cannot be comprehensive understanding of the past. For instance, the pyramids on the Giza Plateau were built not by Egyptologists or archaeologists, but by engineers and craftsmen. It is not surprising, therefore, the Egyptologists overlook engineering features and nuances that would be recognized immediately by those who are trained in those disciplines. Well, there are engineers that have the completely opposite opinion, and reconstructions of ancient machines. There is nothing there that cannot be achieved by ancient machines, all the materials used by them. There's still, everyone talks about I still haven't, what is one thing about the pyramids that cannot be replicated? Firstly, by modern technology, because, have you seen a city? I'm sure if you were to drop a pyramid builder in New York or Shanghai or any of the large industrialized cities, they're going to be very, very impressed by what is there. I'm sure of it. But the message is here is that the Egyptologists and archaeologists are not looking at these features, and they're not engaging engineers and craftsmen. Well, right back at you, buddy, because who are speaking of Christopher Dunn cherry picking, this will be the main point. Who has he chosen as his experts to interpret ancient artifacts, to establish a credible hypothesis? Well, extreme cherry picking, the Christopher Dunn method. Mechanical Engineering in Ancient Egypt, Part 12, Stone Cutting by Galal Ali Hassan. Not picking on him, I just want to bring up the point that when people such as Christopher Dunn sell themselves as master engineer and that they've done their research, it's just the tendency to cite previous, papers, or so, you wouldn't call it a paper, it's a book, work of fiction, Lost Technologies of Ancient Egypt. But he sells himself on an engineer, and look, I have a letter from a company who's an expert, and well, what does this letter have to do? It has to do with the technical feasibility of creating several artifacts, including the granite box in the Serapeum at Saqqara, those big, giant coffins, boxes, sarcophagi, whatever you want to call them. Can they be made? Well, Christopher Dunn, along the Lost Ancient High Technology line, it cannot be done, therefore impossible. Now, what Christopher Dunn was, he got a letter from Mr. Leifer, I'm not sure, but exact pronunciation, and this is as is printed in his book. The letter from the Mr. Leifer of the Truestone Corporation. My company did not have the equipment and capabilities to produce the boxes in this manner. My company would create the boxes in 5 pieces, ship them to the customer and bolt them on site. So that a modern technology company couldn't make a Serapeum box. They'd have to make 5 panels and then bolt them together, which is not uncommon practice still now in graveyards and memorials and that type of thing. But Truestone Corporation, we're a company where we're advanced. We could not create the boxes, therefore the Serapeum boxes could not be created by modern technology, or very, very, but well, what's going on actually here? The Truestone Corporation, my company, did not have the equipment and capabilities to produce the boxes in this manner. My company would create them in 5 pieces, ship them to the customer and bolt them on site. Well, therefore, this is Lost Ancient High Technology. Must be. Do you know what the Truestone Corporation actually does? They do work in granite. They make granite surface plates and related precision tools for metrology, for measurement. They also produce all the related odds and ends, such as the stand to hold granite surface plates such as this. They make straight edges, these type of equipment, that basically everything that fits on a bench and is used in modern engineering for metrology, perfect flatness, angles, etc. Granite is a superior material for making these types of things. And so surface plate, bench, all this straight edge, this is all stuff that fits on a bench. You might notice here is Christopher Dunn on the episode, and it just struck me, well, he seems to, by the look of it, you notice the angles there in the corner, granite surface plate, seems like, he's fully aware what Truestone does, probably has some of their products in his shop. So he knows exactly what Truestone Corporation does, but more importantly, Christopher Dunn knows exactly what the Truestone Corporation does not do, and that is create large granite pieces, ornamental pieces. They do not do that. Here lies the reputation of Christopher Dunn. Where better else to go, especially in the memorial business, is, well, think of modern stonework. Who's still working in stone? Places like this. So rather than that, shouldn't he not have gone to a stonemason rather than a precision granite surface plate manufacturer? Because a stonemason, their career is building things on spec, small or large. But who did he choose? He cherry-picked the Truestone Corporation. They're a single piece, like, littered across the world. There are, modern, historic. There's a single piece granite box, pet size. There's little human sized ones and historic single piece ornate carved boxes. King Louis and Charles, a porphyry box for Napoleon's tomb. Medieval vaults that are a single piece of granite, marble, limestone, you name it. They're all out there throughout the entirety of friggin' history. These boxes. Now, make me a bigger one. What's the big deal about? Well, no, my chisel is, at 7-foot box, my chisel stops working. That's to make a 12-foot box, you don't need a 12-foot chisel. You don't need a 12-foot tool. The modern CNC granite machines that make beautiful, perfect friggin' sculpture, and they can't make a box. Seriously, a granite box is impressive. Sarcophagus of St. Helena. Now we'll come back to this. Now this, notice I can tell that that's precision, non-precision flatness right away by the rippling in the light. Same over here, but this, these boxes are, are porphyry. They're granite, and they got ornate, beautiful sculpture and decoration all over them. So compared to this, well, even the simple hieroglyphs, apparently, you can't have two levels of quality on one, but there's roughly the same size. So I've used the people as scale. Probably been because this person is standing a little bit back from the box, being a little bit too kind to the Serapeum box, probably in size of scale. But those polished, now the Serapeum boxes have all got the same non-perfect flatness. They are not perfectly flat. Every picture that's available, you'll find rippling in the light. They are not precision flatness. That is just a fact. Unavoidable fact, a very inconvenient one for the people who have been selling this rubbish for all that time. But we see they probably call them nicer, but that's not precision flatness. I can see that rippling straight away. Just like you can see if damage has been done in a car body and they've repainted it, you just look for the ripple. But not too shabby. Again, I mentioned earlier, one man can lift the box and the lid. This is modern tech, not a problem. Modern tech, again, Baalbek, 12 guys. That guy with 11 of his friends could lift that, so. Modern technology, but but those are steel. You need modern steel rollers and frames to lift and move the Serapeum boxes and these other stones as well. I just posted last night a video on the Mussolini's column, and they did fine without that. Cedar of Lebanon, you'll find it all over Egypt, not growing, but they imported huge amounts of it. You'll see it inside the construction of pyramids and just literally everywhere. Go to any site which has the structural info. Insurance companies and engineers are going to be looking at this when they build something. So the crushing strength, which is the much less than the elastic modulus or the modulus of rupture. That's just we'll use the lowest figure there. 6,090 pounds per square inch. That's 3.129 ton per square inch. That's the limit. That's the smallest piece of wood that you'd be able. Her camera bag would be enough cedar to put underneath to support that entire freaking box. That's right at the crushing strength. So you have a 4-to-1 ratio, one at each corner. You're talking about a chessboard, and not a super large, but just a bit larger than the standard. But a standard board wouldn't be too much, but it's a chessboard would support that weight. This is another common theme that the limestone would somehow collapse underneath the weight of these boxes, or that the wood would not support it. Rollers cannot support Baalbek. The heavier stones, the ones at Baalbek, tiny amount of timber. 1 square meter is enough to support those things. She could carry that amount of wood to support even the heaviest stones lifted in antiquity. Inside you find it at the step pyramid also, but there we see the structural use of red cedar in the bent pyramid. The Khufu boat, solar boat, next to the Great Pyramid, it's made out of red cedar. Everywhere it was imported, but across the world famous. It was used for incense, making perfumes as well. You'll just find it everywhere. It was like the most famed wood. The red cedar pillars in Solomon's temple, for instance, mentioned in the Bible as well. So it's literally everywhere, and you go, But what about us? What about us? The ropes weren't strong enough. They must have had advanced technology for the ropes and slings. This is some of the hemp rope found with the Khufu ship. You can just, again, it's just like with wood. Hemp fibers have been tested. They're incredibly strong. They could support the weight of any stone that's being moved, without having to totally wrap it up in wood. Like a few cables along the length of the Baalbek stone or any of the Ozymandias, just they could take that weight easy. As an example, hawsers, as they're called, or cables that were used to tow ships. This is the Ark Royal. During World War II, it was hit. It sunk on the way back to Gibraltar, but it was just one of these giant ships that were towed. Now you think, that's the sort of pulling it along. Well, that's a good point. But when you're out at sea, now you're going to try and make the length of a rope equal to the swell. so that as one ship is going down the wave, the other ship being towed is going down the wave as well. But it's chaotic out there, it's not always going to be that case. So during the tow ship will be headed down the wave, accelerating, while the ship being towed is going up the wave, decelerating, with the force, and depending on the direction, the force of that wave is also pushing against it. So this ship is basically being lifted up the wave with the force of the swell pushing against it. These type of tow cables could support the weight of friggin' anything that's ever been built. And again, this is just, these are the ancient materials. These ancient materials could absolutely, without 100% fear of contradiction, support these weights. It's just a fact. And nothing, 800 tons of trilithons, or even up to like 1200 Ozymandias, hemp rope, and Lebanese cedar, or other timbers as well. Like Lebanese cedar is not out there on its own in terms of strength, but these are the materials used throughout around the Mediterranean. These all ships, cedar and hemp rope, a few other timbers as well, but those two were quality timber. They could support those weights with a very small frame. So, but just because I had the materials, to support that weight doesn't mean anything. You need 30,000, 40,000 men or 3,000 elephants to move these heavy stones. Well, number one, that's just like so far way off. The classic example would be just to divide these stones that they talk about by 40,000, and you see that each man would only have to generate 30 kilos or 20 kilos to move this. Now, children, you could replace that with children, and that's assuming that they're just lifting it like without any thought to how they're going to do it, or bringing any sailing technology into the thing. Ancient sailors, even a small, any ship that's like larger than a boat, now it's a ship, to support the mast, to stop the mast being blown over, to maneuver and rig the sailing. You cannot do this without mechanical advantage. The crew is just not heavy enough. If you all tie them on a rope and try to weigh them against, it's just not going to support those weights, even in a mild breeze. There is no sailing without some form of mechanical advantage. Levers, winches, hitch knots, or compound pulley systems. You might have seen these things on ships. All they are is a pulley system, but instead of a pulley on an axle, they just run the ropes through these loops, grease the ropes up. This is a pulley system. What you see here, or what you see there, is exactly what you see on modern cranes. This is where most of the weight is. It's not just like one rope hanging off, and it's not four ropes to support the weight. It's a pulley. It's a compound pulley system. Mechanical advantage. Each time you add a loop, you basically halve the weight that needs to be, the energy that needs to go into your lift. If you can't sail, you can't lift, and if you can't lift, then you can't sail, because these two, crane technology and sailing technology, are linked just completely. Like, you can't separate the two. That's the origin of these. Sailors had to be able to manage the mast and bring heavy loads on and off. They had to have crane technology, and they did it without advanced Lost Ancient High Technology at that. Now, the Architectura, 10 Books of Architecture by Vitruvius, is basically a textbook of ancient technologies. And what does that have to say? So the famed Books of Architecture by the architect/engineer Marco Vitruvius, 1st century BC. In his book, he doesn't just describe how to copy another machine. He goes into detail into the types of simple machines, such as pulleys, inclined plane, the basics of what still makes up all our modern machinery is described in there. And chapter 1, book 10. Book 10 is full of machines. A machine is a combination of materials capable of moving great weights, and that's exactly what they did, and they were described in detail. Not just how to copy an existing machine, but how each piece works. They understood these things because they were sailing. And the Romans inherited this from people who were sailing previously. They might have improved on the size and efficiency of them, but there was no Roman invention that separated them from previous people who were sailing the Mediterranean, engaged in trade and warfare or whatever. If you want a ship, you have to have a crane. So if Vitruvius was alive now and saw all these machines, he'd be impressed, but he would understand them all too well. He knows exactly what's working here. The only thing that would be new to him are some of the materials, but the electric motor or the combustion engines which are powering them. That's the only thing that he did not have that these rely on, and that's exactly the type of machines he was describing. All these modern cranes are actually just reconfigured sailing ships that have had a motor attached to them, and in some cases, such as chain hoists, not even a motor attached. The man can lift 100 tons. Chain hoists, pulleys, compound pulley systems were just engaged in old time. It just, again, was a fact. It's a necessity. No one was sailing without mechanical advantage. Get a close-up there of this Roman era. So a Roman era ship, the rigging's not done in any detail at all. Still wouldn't call it high resolution, but you start to get an idea of how the rigging's working. And what are they doing? They're using exactly the same as later sailors and exactly the same as modern cranes. They're using compound pulley systems to lift the weight. If you're unfamiliar with how a compound pulley system is, it's basically an anti-gravity machine. You can lift massive weights just by pulling on the rope. No oxen needed. Here's another. So what these are just compound pulley systems. Now, your normal pulley has your axle. So when people think of, well, you don't need this. That's what you need. And you actually don't even need that. You can do it with a single piece of rope. These are cranes. These devices, what they're doing is they're pulling very tightly on the mast to stop the mast tipping over in those giant winds. You have any, you know that, like imagine a tree can get pulled over in a storm. Well, a mast with a sail attached is like a giant tree, but with less flexibility in terms of the wind pushing through the leaves. Absolutely massive forces go into a mast, even during a light to medium wind. And they absolutely need these machines, and that's what these are machines, compound pulley systems so that a small crew can pull down on these ropes and apply a massive force. Just absolutely necessary. Winches or capstans, which you could think of them as terms of leverage, but they're really better to think of them as gearing systems. And what is this capstan? Well, it is a winch for a water well. The lever creates a big circle, and it tightens a little circle. You have a gearing system. That would be at about 10 to 1. So this winch here with the water well, that circle has that diameter about there, and then you compare it to the diameter of the drum where it's being pulled up, maybe about 6 to 1. Well, again, if you extended that, it's a gearing system, and if it was a little bit longer, that would be a 10 to 1 advantage, that you're 10 times stronger. Or a winch such as this, where you're moving, that's just a big circle going around. It's a gearing system. You walk around in a big circle, and it tightens a little circle, gives you mechanical advantage. Cogs and gears. Just like on your bike, you go into low gear, it's easy to go uphill, easy to turn. You can apply more force. If you go into high gear, you can go very fast, but terrible for lifting yourself uphill. You need low gear, and that's what's happening with these things. And these are all ancient inventions. A water well plus a compound pulley system equals a crane. That's all this. All this is just these two. Just they look more engineered, sciencey, but that's all that it is that goes into lifting. And again, you can replace that with a trucker's hitch or a compound pulley system. Again, ancient knowledge. The ancient knowledge of rope and tying the right knot. If you can tie the right knot, you can do virtually anything. If you can work your rope, splice your rope, you can make super strong rope with coils and all the features in there. All these ancient cranes are just reconfigured ancient sailing boats. That's all that it is. Winches and pulleys, basically, gears or levers, combined, mechanical advantage. This is that. That's what it is. That's how it works. And again, mentioned earlier, it's not the motors that do the lifting. You just, again, look at a winch that's bolted on front of a Jeep or a truck or a pickup. Tiny little electrical motor pulls a massive force. It's not the little electrical motor that's applying the energy. Well, actually is applying the energy, but the lifting or the pulling of the winch is actually all being done by a gearing system. essentially leverage. That's how the real work happens. Illustration, of course, people won't be separated. This is a crane as described by Vitruvius, also depicted by ancient arts of Polyspaston. Often amongst Lost Ancient High Technology circles, they'll say this is the biggest Roman crane, and they could only lift 3 or 6 tons. They haven't even read the Wikipedia article on that. What the actual Wikipedia article says, let alone Vitruvius, is that each man, just with this configuration, can lift 3 tons per man. So it's a 2-man treadwheel. This is a 6-ton crane. But it's not the limit of the rope or the frame. It's that 2 men can walk this wheel. You could make it 3 men, you could make it 4 men, and that's just in this single configuration. Like again, hoist cranes or A-frame cranes would be a better bet. What this type of crane is like your extendable boom arm or your construction crane. It can reach out and grab things. Then you pull on these pulleys, these ropes, and it tilts it back and it lifts. So it just doesn't just lift up; it can also move the weight. They also had swivel cranes as well. So all those modern extendable boom arm cranes you see, they had that. That's actually where it come from, at least. And the Romans again did not just pop up with this. Some of their best engineers, machine inventors, were all from the Library of Alexandria. Cebius, Heron, Library of Alexandria, Egypt. That's where, and the Greeks, that was one of their major schools where this stuff was passed on. Is a famous image, what's the name, construction of a mausoleum. Put that next to this reconstruction. It's not just described in Vitruvius, again in the artworks as well, absolutely necessary for construction. You just have a winch, again a big wheel, which turns a little wheel on the inside. That's where you wind the rope, so you have a gearing advantage. Be about 20 to 1. 5 people on inside this wheel. You also have your pulley system, and a secondary pulley system to tilt the crane. That's modern cranes, new cranes. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Now this configuration with that wheel of that size and just a double 2-fold pulley, each man can lift 3 tons without breaking a sweat. You can do that all day long. By adding more pulleys or changing the gearing ratio, changing the winches, so you just add another wheel to gear it up, or to gear it down actually, it would be no problem for each man to lift 20 tons or even more. This is what Vitruvius is actually describing in his book. It's more of a textbook on the principles of lifting as much as it is describing different machines, and not just a crane like this, but also how to move massive columns along the road, again using pulleys and basic simple machines. This is what the Lost Ancient High Technology community desperately don't want you to see, because the Romans inherited this. They left exquisite records of what they did. And why couldn't, well, the Egyptians had to have had this because they were sailing. So the Phoenicians, other people as well, how did they move heavy cargoes? It's unavoidable. So Vitruvius, Book 10, I just highly recommend the whole book because it gives you a fantastic insight into the philosophy of architecture. He's constantly referring to the ancients. So ancient Romans are referring to the ancients in terms of their knowledge. Strabo does the same. Diodorus does the same. That we were the heirs of older civilizations and older knowledge. Greeks, Chaldeans, Phoenicians, Egyptians. So back to the cherry picking point. So Christopher Dunn wants you to believe that the Serapeum boxes are, firstly, that they're precision, which they are not, but he wants you to believe that they're somehow impossible or very, very difficult for modern masons to do. And he went to a granite surface plate manufacturer to find this, and it's like a letter from his, oh look, I got a letter from my mum, look, True Stone can't do it. That's, well, he cherry picked that, because it's the worst of granite working companies. You could not pick a worse choice to do that, and that you avoided every stonemason in the world. Those who are still making memorials, grave vaults, etc. Well, wouldn't that be your first point of reference? So what he's really done is, like Christopher Dunn, he's got, hello Company A, who work in precision electronics, and high voltage power lines are also in the electrical industry. So it goes to company A. You work with precision electronics that fit on a bench. I'd like to purchase some high voltage electrical power lines. Company replies, well, thank you for your inquiries, but our company does not have the equipment or capability to produce high voltage power lines. Therefore, electrical power lines are evidence of lost high technology, because I didn't even bother going to a company that specializes in that. I went to someone who does the exact opposite, but because they work with electronics, he works with electronics, therefore it's the same. They work with precision granite surface plates, therefore they know everything that there is to know about large granite constructions. It is extreme cherry picking. This is how it works. This is just, again, there's more to this as well. We'll go through some other examples, but every stonemason in the world was avoided. And the one person where he got his letter from mum from was from a granite surface plate manufacturer. Look, I have a letter from someone who says our company can't do it. Therefore, the Serapeum boxes are difficult to make. And we'll get to that one in a moment. All right, let's do this first as well. Here are some images. History Maze channel, Man versus Granite Part 1. Images from recent history showing granite companies in operation, pre-modern, still past the industrial era, but they're still working with primitive technology. And what are they doing? Let's have a look at that. These type of pictures are the ones that the Lost Ancient High Technology industry work very diligently to not include. Here's another one. They get better. On a sled. It's winter. Maybe the ground's frozen, but a couple sleds. Nice big block there. We're looking at least 10 feet. Got to be heading towards probably 30, let's say 25. Huge block of granite and just sliding along. Here's another one on rollers. Now let's bring in the often amongst the incestuous group that is Lost Ancient High Technology. There is a couple names that just always there, and one of them is the Kemet Institute, and so he's presented master accomplished stonemason, master stonemason, indigenous ancient wisdom keeper. Wow. Ancient engineering on the Giza Plateau, evidence of massive bedrock engineering. From the beginning, this is a quote by Yusuf Iwan, the indigenous wisdom keeper. From the beginning to the location to the use of it, the reuse of it, almost every challenge in the pyramid structure is a mystery. Which one? Please name me one like structure or component that's a mystery on how to do. The organization is impressive, very, very impressive, but it is essentially a pile of stones. Where is the one mystery that cannot be replicated, either with ancient or modern technology? There's not lifting, cutting, removing the blocks. It's no, I don't. In the comments, please be specific with one piece of a pyramid that cannot be replicated with modern technology, let alone primitive technology. But again, he's on the industry there, overcharging people for them to point at stones and say impossible. He's one of the things in there. Here he's here with his accomplice, and they say, and again you can find the where's the time code? It's in there, but ancient engineering on a Giza Plateau. To move 70 tons, now they're saying to move 70 tons, it has to be on rollers from steel to handle the weight. Literally, this is what Lost Ancient High Technologists say. But a ramp road from mud, brick and wood, that's going to sink. So you need steel rollers for 70 tons. Let's just even say up it to 80 tons, the heaviest block there in the pyramid, equivalent to the Serapeum. Steel would collapse because rollers and sleds can't handle the weight, but a ramp road of mud, brick and wood, what's going to sink in there? Well, no one has delivered a heavier load on a dirt road. There are a plethora of TV shows about this, ice road truckers, outback truckers everywhere, mother truckers, whatever, it's just all over. You don't even wow, okay. And ramps, so, an earth ramp, No one ever lifted anything heavy up an earthen ramp. 70, oh, God forbid someone should try to lift 70 tons up a dirt ramp because it's going to sink. I posted this yesterday, moving a monolith old school on sleds, timber. That's at that time it was 350 ton block being brought down the mountainside, as well as being pulled, because as you go down the mountain, it's not always straight down. It also had to be up and downhill. There's more uphills coming down a mountain than what there is uphills on the plain. They had no problem doing this. This is what they don't want you to see. Now, I've taken this man, and just to use him as a gauge, just dropped him on top. So this stone is, it's got to be 10 feet high, and yeah, probably more, but and at least sort of 8 feet high on a dirt road with rollers. You're looking at 70 tons, or very, very close to it, and it's not sinking on a dirt road. Why not? Because these guys are habitually incompetent or professional con men. And given that they're expert wisdom keepers, researchers, charging people to go on tours, for God's sake, that they would have done some due diligence, some work. So either they haven't and they continue to lie, or they have done the work and they know the reality and they continue to lie. There is really no way around it. Again, Man versus Granite Part 1. A granite lathe. Now, there are other images. This one, I think that's as the stone's being worked, that's why they're different colours, but they did make single piece lathes. Now, Pliny describes massive lathes for making single piece columns. So again, this is what the lost, that there's a single piece column here. Later civilizations didn't build with single piece columns. Later civilizations didn't have lathe technology to build that. Again, Brian Foster literally says Romans could not work granite, and Romans didn't have lathe technology. That's what he says. Okay, so they look at these big single piece columns. Therefore, this is machining lost ancient high technology, because dynastic Egyptians, Greeks, later civilizations didn't use monolithic columns or lathes. Now, the Pantheon in Rome, these are all imported single piece columns of granite from Egypt. And well, the Romans could work granite. So let's give them that and say that these were found in Egypt, because reasons. Still Corinthian capitals on top, and they were bought and transported to Rome. The ancient lost high technology didn't do it. Pompeii's pillar, absolutely massive. Corinthian capital on the top again. These are clearly the dates of these is from the types of architecture. But again, let's just say that the Romans just inherited that. Well, they still managed to put a bloody great big Corinthian capital on the top. So Mons Claudianus quarry in Egypt, and also nearby Mons Porphyry, where they got the porphyry from. But look at these column blanks. Notice on the edge you got these stubby bits. Roman writing all over. There were Roman way stations where each stone was meant to be delivered so much per day. Like no one doubts that this was being worked by Romans. Much older, but we literally have the receipts when it comes to these types of things as well. So there's a column blank, Mons Claudianus in Egypt. That's granodiorite. Marble column blanks, Mount Ochi in Greece. And marble column blanks for Marmor in Turkey. These two are Greco-Roman era quarries, and the marble, there's no marble, this type of marble was just not used anywhere in Egypt. So, okay, this is clearly, people will dispute, but let's, you got to hold on to the story. But what you have there is, you notice that all of them have these features on the ends. The Romans, probably the Greeks too before, were quarrying single piece columns and then transporting them. Then they would cut them up and make the drum columns. However, they were so firstly they were quarrying, monolithic columns. So if you're quarrying and moving around the quarry, what's the difference moving them on the construction site? And secondly, There are, such as the Temple of Apollo at Corinth, single-piece columns, but this is an inferior design because they don't last up to the earthquakes as well. It's better to have column drums, and they insert pieces of cedar in there, and it's a better design to have column drums. But either way, the Greeks and Romans were definitely building single-piece columns. So this thing that later civilizations did not do it, absolute garbage. Like literally, it is rubbish. It is an invented fact, which means that they lied about it, or they know it's not the truth and they're lying about it. This is how the ancient Egyptian lost high technology industry works. They make fake facts and then they cherry pick and create a false narrative. He's incompetent or con men. Okay, these ones we can skip past. I mentioned this earlier. So jewelry doesn't exist until diamond technology. Okay, back to Man versus Granite, Part 1. Images from recent history, History Maze channel. These granite working companies back in the day during the era of photography, granite didn't just sort of pop up at the same time that the photography started to emerge. There's also written and drawn accounts that go back prior to this. They were just working on a massive scale. So here we have two pieces of the column capital which went on top of the Iowa State Soldiers Monument. It's granite. One is 12 feet in diameter and 3 feet thick. The other is 13 feet in diameter, 2 feet 8 inches thick. Transported without incident, lifted in position over 100 feet from the ground in 12 minutes. So once these things got delivered, they had them on top, and that's what they are there, 1 and 2. That's that piece on top and that piece on the bottom. They're each about 25-30 tons. Lifted over 100 feet in 12 minutes. Lost, just no massive construction cranes. They just did it old school with levers, pulleys, and winches. So just to put all that into perspective, there's a guy next to a Serapeum box, so he's about 12 feet there. So that's how big that piece is. Uh, 80% of the basically the weight of the lid each one of those pieces are, and then lifted in minutes to the top using and beautiful ornate work, not just a squared off box, and in the end the Serapeum boxes are they're a box. It's the most simplest design you can get. You see some of this Izita project, even the angles, it's not this precision stuff in there. So modern technology can't make a giant granite box, but they can do things like this. Back then, yeah, again, just great. Like it's part of what's these massive pieces of stone. Oh wow, so people in the past, couldn't do that. This is Vigeland Sculpture Park, Oslo, Norway. The monolith is 46 feet high. 36 sculpture groups, 36 of these around the outside, and like over 200 pieces in the park, built by basically the one guy running the show. On this monolith, single piece of granite, there are 121 human figures sculpted in there. So, big column of granite and 120, like each on these own would be a masterpiece of sculpture on their own. There are 121 of them, all bedded up beautifully together, like wow, absolute wow. Monolith, that's the focal point of a park, 14.21 meters. The carving of a monolith took over 14 years and involved work by the artist himself as well as 3 other stone carvers. So 4 blokes did that in 14 years. Now the main guy, Vigeland, I'm sure he wasn't there every day, all day, working all the time. So you really even were those 3 blokes working full time? Well, that's 121 sculptures on this monolith. That's fantastic work. So even if you say, 14 years, but it's okay, 14 years plus 121 individual sculptures, which would be hard enough, and then interlace them like that with these proportions. Man, that's something. That's something. So you think that, at this point, do you like Chris Dunn or Lost Ancient Technology think that a granite box can't be made in modern times because he went to True Stone Corporation, who build precision flat plates? He didn't bother to look to a sculptor or a memorial maker because it's cherry picking. It's a joke. Now, 1924 to 1943, the entire park, and again there it's dozens of stuff and all over. But this is how it works. This is the Serapeum is impossible because I spoke to True Stone Corporation, granite surface plate maker. You would have had to have done some rudimentary research. I can't see any other way that it was deliberately. He chose not to look at every other piece of historic stonework, recent stonework in granite, and then to seriously say, well, you can't make a box when that people can't make a box. This is beyond cringe, man. This is a scam or incompetence beyond the gross incompetence. Like, zero credibility ever again. No path to redemption if this is how it is. If this is how it works. This is a scam. But the Serapeum coffers boxes are made to precision flatness. True Stone Corporation makes precision surface plates, therefore it was appropriate for Chris Dunn to get their opinion. Probably, yeah, but also a lot more appropriate to go to a stonemason. But herein lies the rub. Serapeum coffers, precision. This is just not true. Just Google Serapeum, you're going to get all of this lost proof of ancient high technology, lost and hidden knowledge, incredible precision. This is all garbage. Is it a project? This will all be linked in the description. They visited in 2012. Awesome catalog of every box. Awesome high resolution photos from every available angle. Awesome resource to look into Serapeum boxes. They revisited in 2013 and are able to take measurements of the angles. Not a sign of precision. They're just flat out no precision. However, let's go back. I mentioned earlier the sarcophagus of Saint Helena, porphyry, imported from Egypt. Beautiful three-dimensional relief sculpture. Just, got to say, puts this to shame. And it's not that much smaller either. That's basically the size comparison there. However, as we pointed out, I don't need a precision calibrated straight edge to know that this is not flat. I can see it. It's like I know that this car has had bodywork because there is a ripple in there. You can, without the reflection, you might not notice it, but with the reflection, it's evident. And that's one of the best ways to spot not flatness. So you go through again the whole catalog to these photos. Please provide, if you're going to say it's precision, please provide one box that has that, because every photo has the same rippling. I went through box by photo, box by box. Just every one of them, the reflection, this precision reflection actually reveals imprecision. This machine precision perfect flatness is just a big pile of crap. Everywhere you look, you will see the ripples that, there is no precision flatness there. This is what Chris Dunn's repeating. Surface exactly flat as measured by a precision straight edge of accuracy of 0.005 millimeters. His square, like at least he claims, I check if the sky is blue, if he said this was because of the amount of BS he spouts, but assuming his straight edge was precisely calibrated, well, this is we must take his testimony. I testify, that this is what it was. What we have is low resolution, bad photos. That's the best that we've got, and all those years since then, it hasn't improved. So, I mean, that has no value at all. But let's look at these photos themselves. Now you see the reflected light, like, okay, that's not precision flatness. I can see the rippling, the same here. You know, how is that anywhere near precise? Now, if you actually zoom in on them, so again, precision, no big deal. I've done 3 experiments for this. It's quick and easy to do. I've done them with straight saw marks, circular saw marks, and a rough-faced block. I've done it with a small block on a larger one, and I've done it with 2 granite plates of the same size. So this can be transferred across even a large surface. Boning in is the first skill a stonemason learns. First skill an apprentice must learn is boning in, which is creating a flat surface, which is incredibly easy to do with very simple tools. Basically 2 pegs with a piece of string joining and a 3rd peg of equal height. It is like getting flatness is no big deal. Getting precision flatness is no big deal. Having done the experiments, I look at the sarcophagus in the Great Pyramid, the walls of the King's Chamber and the Serapeum, and I go, well, I can see that they did not try very hard to finish these. They were rushed, or it just wasn't important to have even high quality work, let alone forget the precision stuff, even just high quality basic masonry. They did not finish off those boxes to do that. You can, again, I film these experiments, I talk you through it. You can do and test these all for yourself. You don't need to rely on me for anything. Just the facts, Jack. But even the the best photo there, I don't see flatness. I see something quite other than that, and the fact that the image itself is again, every image is there. Like, that's do I need a straight edge to know what's not flat? And that's not flat. That's not precise. It's not even really square. And you can, again, with higher resolution images of people, not flat, not square. You can even see the corners not fitting in well there. It's just not. It's what else does he say? All surfaces are square and parallel to each other. Well, no, they're not. And as you can clearly see there, but so what? Like, that's just pretty much standard masonry around the world, up and from the modern era going back historically. Like, big deal. It really, like, so what? All this precision stuff is just demonstrably untrue. They've visited this place many times. They've walked into the, and they always forget their precision tool. They can never provide any, again, you make the claims, and they, again, if they reveal the truth and someone was to start measuring these properly, as has been done by the Zeta project, this whole phony baloney story falls apart. Notice actually Lost History Channel, he was one of those Pumapunko magnetic anomalies. He actually uses, like, is it the cheek or just the separation from reality? This actually uses a photo that debunks his claims as a thumbnail. Like, wow, again, it's remarkable what they get away with. Links in the description. The Zeta project, like, I go through the whole, if you want to watch my video first, I explain a bunch of stuff, or you can just go directly to the Zeta project and just look for ripples and pits and all the absolute proof of non-precision machine of the Serapeum boxes. Not a single one is precision machine. So this is how it works. Fake facts and extreme cherry picking. This is Lost Ancient High Technology in a nutshell. How the Lost High Technology, Ancient Technology industry works, and it's how it works. A bunch of fake facts, cherry picking, mixed with a healthy dose of Kumbaya. We're all in. We're going to save humanity. We have a. We're all. People now have no spirituality. But watch me point at granite cores, and we're going to save the world from the next cataclysm or rejuvenate spiritualism, because we're just. Ancient people, we're just stupid. Since Lost Ancient High Technology, like we've fallen from grace, or whatever it is. And this is how it works. It's ran much longer than what I thought, and I haven't really got to the second part of the extreme cherry picking of what I like to call the Christopher Dunn method of bogusness anyway. So yeah, ran longer. I'm going to carry this one on, and yeah, it is. You just start peeling away, and this is just it's gross, gross incompetence. People charging huge amounts of money to watch them point at stones and say ridiculously incorrect things, or it's a scam. But either way, it's like very, very bad.